Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana, and today is Tuesday, February the 9th. Had to look down at my computer to get that date. It is all, I think, escaping from me at this point. But today we are going to talk about something that was really big news yesterday, and that is Senator Richard Shelby's announcement of retirement. The longtime senator announced that he will not seek re-election in 2022. He did say that he will continue to serve out the rest of his term, so we will have him for another 2 years or so in the U.S. Senate. Is not going to seek re-election. Our own Paul Gaddis is here to talk to us about what that means for Alabama and also who are some of the rumored names that might seek to take over that seat. So, Paul, thanks so much for coming on today to explain some of this to us. And I think a lot of people are like me in the fact that Senator Shelby has been in Washington for, I think, over 4 decades is what we've reported. And there are people like me who don't remember a time when there was not a Senator Shelby.
It has been a long time. And as you can tell from my hairline, it's been quite a while since I've been in high school. He was elected to the Senate when I was in high school. So now that I've completely aged myself, but I doubt we'll see another one like him maybe in our lifetime. I mean, that's special. And I'm not talking about this policy or that policy, but for the impact that he had and what he meant to the state of Alabama, you don't just replace somebody like that.
Right. And I know you and I were talking a few minutes ago before we were live, and I said that I have not been alive at a time where there has not been a Senator Shelby. And I know Senator Shelby's 86. Not aging him at all, not trying to, but I have never known anything different. I remember in that 3rd or 4th grade region when you were taught about civics and about government, learning that at the time our senators were Sessions and Shelby. And I remember that on our little quiz, it was so easy to remember because they both started with an S. But this is a position that I believe is the longest. Senator Shelby's held for the longest Alabama. He's the longest delegate, we can say, in Alabama to the Congress. And again, that's not surprising with that long of a tenure. But Paul, you wrote a great story yesterday that really detailed a lot of the things that Senator Shelby has done. And most recently, he has been a very powerful member of Congress, which I think because you don't see him often in the media or on TV, a lot of people kind of forget how powerful the senator is.
Well, Senator Shelby, he is a different kind of politician. I guess I wouldn't necessarily say he's part of the new wave in that they're eager to be on TV at any opportunity they may get. He's not eager to go out and comment on the hot issue of the day. That's just not his style. But what he does is he is again, people may get tired of hearing this, but he is a powerful force behind the scenes. He is most recently he was the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and that's where all the money is. That's where all the money it goes through there. That committee sort of steers it in certain directions. So just imagine you're someone like Senator Shelby who has been in Washington so long, who knows the ins and outs, knows how to scratch other people's backs to get what he wants. Then he ascends to be the chair of that committee. It's he means an incredible amount to the state of Alabama. And if you don't believe that, just stick around a few years to when he's not there, and we'll see if things suddenly kind of dry up.
Right. Now, again, we know that he's not going to seek a 7th term. So he's been there 6 terms, which is over, again, we mentioned that number of over 4 decades. But now there is seemingly a rush of names that people are talking about who might run to replace the senator. Now, we know our other Senate seat was just recently filled by newly elected Senator Tommy Tuberville. We know that he right now is the junior senator of Alabama in Congress, but he will become the senior senator when we have a new person elected in 2022. Now, you wrote a great story that really compiled all these names, gave a little bit of a bio about each person and kind of why they were rumored to maybe cast their name in that pot of people who might run for the senator seat. So I want to go through a few of them, but first let me ask you, where did you get these names?
Well, it comes from just covering politics, in Alabama for a long time. It comes from talking with people. anytime the topic of Senator Shelby's retirement comes up, you never miss an opportunity to say, well, who you think's going to run? Who would you see being in that position? And so, it's really just kind of a compilation of what you learn over the years. It's not something that you really just kind of sit down and come up with off the top of your head. I mean, some of them are a little, maybe a little obscure or a little off the radar, but the story that we did yesterday, it was not an attempt to predict who's going to win. It was just to give a snapshot of who might run. And there will be obscure people run. There will be people that that you may not be very familiar with at all that will put their name on the ballot. So we try to allow a little bit for that. But it's just it's always politics is another way to say gossip, to be honest.
We have one person, it was actually, I think, my first comment on this video from somebody who said that they did not want John Merrill to run for that seat. But that is a name that is on your list. That is Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill. Most people are familiar with Merrill. He does put himself out there quite a bit and keeps his name out there in the forefront of viewers and audience members that watch TV or read the newspaper. Paul, give us a little bit of a reason why Secretary of State Merrill might run for this seat.
Well, one thing to understand, I think, about John Merrill is, yes, he has a very strong presence on social media, to the consternation of some people I know. We could talk about that. That's a whole nother ballgame. But what you may not necessarily know about John Merrill is that he does work. He does work at his job. He does work at keeping himself in the forefront. He prides himself on traveling throughout the state. He has visited every county in the state. He makes that an annual goal for himself to visit everywhere in Alabama, to go out and meet with groups, talk with people. And, someone who does that, it would seem to suggest that they have their eye on a larger prize somewhere down the road. And that would sort of fits in the mold of what Senator Shelby does. Senator Shelby, before COVID came in, but he was well known for traveling throughout the state, having town halls all over the state and meeting with people, even well into his 80s. I hope I'm healthy enough to be able to do that when I'm that age. So that's what about John Merrill.
I think that it is so interesting that you brought that up, because that was what I was going to say, is that Senator Shelby really built his career and really made a name for himself across Alabama by making a point. I believe it was every term he was elected, he would make a point in that term to visit all of the counties in Alabama. So that is, I will always remember that, because I had a great political science professor in college that really kind of used that as an example of campaigning, and as somebody who wants to get out there and get across the state, especially in Alabama, where there's many rural parts of the state who might not be as plugged into the internet or cable news. And that is something that we see John Merrill might have picked up on from Senator Shelby, or he might just be doing as a rule of politics. But a very interesting comparison, I think, to have. Now, looking again through some of these comments, a lot of people commenting about John Merrill, which is, like we said, a very interesting name. We could do a whole video on that possibility. But I want to go through a couple of these other names. And the next one that I think everybody is going to ask about is Mo Brooks, Representative Mo Brooks. What do you know about that possibility?
Well, that it's a possibility. And I don't know if Congressman Brooks is going to make that decision to run for the Senate. He did run in the special election in 2017. He did not run in 2020. And one thing I could tell you, and I've gotten to know Congressman Brooks. He and I have known each other for a long time. You may like him, you may not like him. You may disagree with his strategies or his policies. But Congressman Brooks, he's a very smart man. He's a very intelligent man. And if he's not going to get into the race unless he has a very firm belief that he can win. And so, those decisions are still a ways out, I think. You have to sort of check your base. You have to see what kind of support you can garner. You kind of have to measure the support that the other candidates may get. But one thing I can say about Congressman Brooks, if he does put his name in the hat, he thinks he can win.
Going through, I'm loving that there's a couple people dropping down names that actually weren't on the list. So I'm going to get those in a minute. But we've got Angie saying Katie Britt would be an amazing senator if she runs. And Paul, Katie Boyd Britt, some people know her. She is also on your list. Now, she might not be as much of a household name as Bo Brooks, as John Merrill, as a Jeff Sessions, a Bradley Byrne. But Katie Britt is a very strong possibility here. Tell us why.
Well, Katie Britt has a bit of an unusual resume in that she worked closely with Senator Shelby. She was on his staff for a long time. And not only was she on his staff, she sort of worked her way up through the ranks. She was his chief of staff, his right-hand man, when she resigned from that to become the president of the Business Council of Alabama. Again, that's a very strategic move for a potential politician eyeing higher office, because you get to know that business community. They get to know you. And that's a very strong feather in her cap. Plus, she's been in Washington. She's been in the Senate. She knows how things work. And people know her. And you don't get to become Senator Shelby's chief of staff unless you're pretty sharp and you know what you're doing and you have the respect of a lot of people. So, I would be surprised if she does not get into the race, and I think she would be a very formidable candidate if she does.
And we should make a note as well that if that happened and if she was elected, she would be the first woman elected to Alabama, to the Senate from Alabama. We did have several that were appointed, but never has there been a woman who was elected to that seat. So that's just an interesting point to make on Katie. Now, I got a couple of people asking about Doug Jones. We're going to get there in a minute. I'm going Republican people first. We'll get there in just a second, but that is on my list here. Another name that everybody kind of thinks of. I mentioned it earlier when I said I was a kid when the senators were there, and that is Jeff Sessions. Now, we know Jeff Sessions has been in the news for the past 4 or 5 years for different reasons. We know that he held that Senate seat for, I believe, about 20 years before he went on and moved up to the to Attorney General. But for that brief period. But Sessions did run, we need to remember, for Senator Doug Jones's seat just last year in 2020, and he did not become the Republican nominee for that seat. So, Paul, do we think that he'll throw the name out there again?
If I had to guess, I would probably say no. He had a very hard landing last year when he tried to get back into the Senate. And I don't pretend to know Senator Sessions really at all. I've been around him several times, talked to him several times, but I think that it sort of surprised him that he was not more readily accepted as a candidate. And given that, I think maybe you look at the writing on the wall, so to speak, and you think, well, maybe I just need to let that go on by. No need to potentially take a beating like that once again. He finished second in the Republican primary to Tommy Tuberville, and then in the runoff, he lost by 22 points. I expected Tuberville to win that just because of the polling suggested that he would. But even that margin of victory for Tuberville, that was surprising for me, and I imagine it was probably surprising for Senator Sessions as well. That's hard to say. But if I have to guess, I'd probably say he won't get back in.
Well, and I remember I was actually covering the event that now Senator Tuberville had when he won that runoff. And that was, I think even they seemed to be surprised at that margin. Because like you said, it wasn't as close as I think a lot of people expected, considering that Sessions had been in politics for decades at this point, has built most of his life around politics in Alabama and nationally. And Senator Tuberville had no experience in politics and only in football. So that was an interesting race, an interesting margin. Now, one that we don't have on our list that I'm seeing people say in the comments here is very interesting, and that is Troy King. Paul, I know you've covered politics in Alabama for quite a while. Do you think that's a possibility? I know it wasn't on your list, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, he could be in there, and that's certainly a name that wouldn't necessarily be a big surprise if he got in it. One thing that I think might be holding him back a little bit is I don't know about the statewide name recognition that he might have. I'm not sure exactly about how much support he could drum up in key circles. And I think he ran for Alabama Attorney General, and I may be completely wrong about this, but I think he ran in 2018 and did not finish. I think he didn't even make a runoff. I don't remember, but I know he was well back in the race, which was a bit surprising since he had formerly held that position. So, he could be lurking out there. Like I said, there's going to be people that's going to surprise us, but I don't really know. That's a good name, though.
And I think you are right too about that last race that he got in 2018. Now, a couple of people that I think is really interesting, voicing a lot of support for a possible entry here from Kate Boyd Britt. So interesting to see that support coming with just a day after this retirement. But again, here we are talking about it as well. So a couple quick things I want to note that I see people asking in the comments here, and that is, I believe Helen said that the reason that Jeff Sessions was so behind, especially in that 2020 race for Doug Jones' Senate seat, was because Trump voiced his dislike for Sessions, and that a lot of Alabamians do back former President Trump, and that is why that support didn't happen. And she's probably right is for that comment as well. Now, I had a couple people that were asking about Doug Jones. Now we're going to shift a little bit to those Democrats who might jump in the race for that seat. And Doug Jones is definitely a name that is out there. We know that then Senator Jones, he has just left that office to make way for Senator Tuggle. And I believe he is now a fellow at a college in Washington, and he is also a contributor for CNN. So, Paul, do you think that Doug Jones is a possibility to get back into this race, to get back into politics?
I think it's a possibility, but I think I saw somebody reported from Washington that they did not think that he would be getting back into it. And of course, you don't have to make a decision today, but I don't know what his appetite might be. Again, he is another one of those people who are very, very intelligent, very smart. He's not going to put himself in a bad situation if he doesn't think he can win. But I think overall, just for the Democratic Party in Alabama, that this is going to be a very big election because there's sort of a new leadership in the Democratic Party in Alabama. There's a desire to sort of break the Republican stranglehold. You're not going to do that in a single election cycle or by winning a single office. But I think Democrats, led by Chris England, they will be eager to put forth a very strong candidate, even if it may mean that candidate is facing an uphill battle. But just as an effort, say the Democrats put forth a strong candidate and that Democrat just loses by 10 points, 55-45. Well, that would be a marked improvement. And that might be a baby step toward the Democratic Party becoming more of a force in the state of Alabama. So you may have to find somebody who would be a quality candidate, but be willing to put themselves out there, sort of sacrifice themselves politically to make a small step forward for the Democratic Party.
And do you think that that's possible? Do you think that there is a very viable Democratic candidate put against a viable Republican candidate, that even though that Republican might carry the state, do you think it's possible there could be a smaller margin than what we've seen in past elections?
Well, there could be. And one reason that I think you have to say that is because the Republican Party right now, like it or not, is sort of split itself. You sort of have the Trump Party, and then you sort of have the establishment party. If a Democrat could come in and pick off some of those votes from the establishment party, you could make that a closer run. I don't know if the Trump camp is going to be surrendering many of their votes, but yeah, there are quality candidates that could be Democrats. One that I'm most familiar with probably is Anthony Daniels. He's the state legislator in Huntsville. And Anthony is just to put Anthony in perspective, he was first elected to the House in 2014. 3 years later, he was the House Minority Leader. So he is a fast rising guy. He's got a lot of respect from Democrats. He's a very sharp guy. and he's a young guy. I think he's I don't want to age him too much, but I think he's maybe just under 40. So he could potentially be a strong candidate who could have a life after losing the Senate race, just because of the gains he may make in name ID and people getting to know him.
I'm just looking through some of these suggestions here. We've got somebody, Jamie, who is saying that Walt Maddox would be, in her belief, a good candidate from Tuscaloosa. We've got somebody saying Arthur Orr from Decatur. We have a couple of other names here. We've got, of course, as always, a endorsement here for Nick Saban. I don't think that's surprising, but I also don't think that one's going to happen. But I've been wrong before, obviously. And then, of course, in this Super Bowl week, we have some suggestions for Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So let's just wrap up. We can wrap up the week with that. We can wrap up the video with that. And you know what? We will say, while I don't think those two are going to happen, anything is possible. And as we've seen this week, it might be a little bit impossible to beat Tom Brady. So, we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. So, Paul, thank you so much for coming on, kind of indulging us in this conversation about what might happen. And I guess, unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait a couple more years to see.
Well, there'll be a lot of words written between now and then all about it. So we'll look forward to it.
Good. We will look forward to reading it from you, Paul. Thank you so much. Everybody watching, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.